Welcome to Dear Business Coach, the podcast. My name's Elizabeth. Find one thing to move your business forward today. With conversations, spotlights, interviews, articles, and free resources. Listen, follow, and subscribe on social media, Dear Business Coach pages and groups, Dear Business Coach podcast. We're on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube. And don't forget Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, and anywhere you listen to podcasts. All it takes sometimes is one little thing to move your business forward today.
All right, so we're hitting the recording button, and Loise is how I say that. Is that right?
100%.
Great. Well, so welcome to the Dear Business Coach podcast. And today I'm going to ask you for some basic 101 questions and some deeper questions. Nicholas, will you please introduce yourself?
Absolutely. It's Nicholas Loise, founder of Sales Performance Team. We are a fractional sales leadership company and a fractional sales coaching company that has been focusing on helping small to mid-sized businesses grow their revenue and increase their enterprise value for the last 5+ years.
Oh my goodness. So you actually talked to me last time in our first meeting a little bit about, I can tell you're passionate about being able to connect the right people. And so I imagine that's kind of what we're going to share with each other today is what are you working on right now? What is the landscape as far as the sales business goes? And what's your role right now helping us out here?
So phenomenal question. And the landscape is just so tricky now on sales, right? There are a lot of companies certainly trying to meet their Q4 goals, right? They have aggressive Q4 goals, and then they're looking at 2025. You have small businesses that are looking to either true up to last year and nudge ahead. And deals are taking longer, right? Customers, prospects, buying committees, whoever you sell to. I'm not saying they put the brakes on, but they're slowing down and they're looking at everything. I don't know if people are waiting to see what happens in November 6th. I don't know what it is. August was interesting. I've talked to 5 different people, 5 different industries just this week alone. They are not clients of ours, but they're like, it seemed like everybody went away, right? Everybody went on vacation in August. So it was tough to get deals or tough to get in front of people. So that's the first thing we're seeing, right? And that's been around forever. We're seeing larger companies decrease headcounts, but then telling sales leaders that you still have to hit your number, right? So, okay, how am I going to hit my number if I have less people? For recruiting, there's a lot of people on the street, a lot of big company people that have been laid off. It's sometimes difficult to bring them into smaller businesses. Smaller businesses need to be more nimble, right? They just approach sales differently. So that's interesting, right? Trying to do that. So the caliber of the talent is good on the street, which is great for small business owners. So the key is, can you get them in, make sure that their comp plan is one that they stay around and will be happy and satisfied with your business line. So those are the first 2 things that we see. And the third thing is, the state of the game of sales with AI is always, I don't want to say adapting, but there's going to be some game-changing things that are probably going to come down the pike next year. And so as a business leader, as a business coach, as a business advisor, how are you in front of that, right? So that you're bringing good value to your clients. So those are 3 things, and we can unpack all of them. We can unpack none of them, whatever you want to do. I'm here for the ride.
Okay. Yeah. So sorry, that was a little bit of a high pressure jump into the conversation, but I had a feeling you were up to task. So
I love being challenged first thing in the morning. I'm not even into my first cup of coffee, and I love being challenged.
Okay. Well, thank you. Yeah, so I do want to unpack. Now, I will back up a little bit though. So you have been with Sales Performance Team for 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so tell me a little bit about your interest in developing the business and your background.
Oh, I love this. So I've been an entrepreneur as well as in, let's say, corporate America. So back and forth for a number of different things. I owned a marketing agency from 2006 to 2012. With that, we saw that we could generate leads for customers, but a lot of them struggled on the sales side, right? Hiring salespeople, getting salespeople up and going and training them up. That got sold. I had some partners and we had some venture capital. So we had an exit plan and we exited that business in 2012. I then went into the largest marketing education and then done for you business at the time. And we did a lot of work with small to mid-sized businesses. That's all we worked with, right? So entrepreneurs and small business owners. And we could get them educated on the sales side, but what they all struggled with was hiring salespeople, getting them onboarded, creating sales playbooks, creating all the, let's call it the blocking and tackling and formational things that you need from a sales operations standpoint. It just wasn't how they thought. And that company that I was with was private equity owned. If you've been in private equity, 4 different owners, 5 different owners, 8 different CEOs, right? And so at a certain point, it was time for me to exit. They didn't want this IP. It wasn't a business line that they were going after, and they allowed me to take it and move forward. So my first couple years of the business was really just working with clients from that original company that I was with, which I was blessed to have them come on board with me. I was blessed that I had that smooth of an exit. And so we've been growing fast and furious ever since then. But that's kind of been the genesis of it. So I love the marketing side of the business and I love the sales side of the business, and getting them to dance together, if you will, becomes a beautiful thing. And just how do you get that to do that is the question that everybody at some point is struggling with. And we'd like to help businesses with that.
Yeah, so you said fractional sales and fractional leadership, and I think that you could either tell me that means help in an interim type of period if you service the fractional leadership market, but also do you encounter clients who maybe come to you because they feel like they're lost or need a quick fix, right? Because if you're in that field of helping people through ebbs and flows and in your zone of genius, that's what I would come to you for, right? Is say, I'm in a pinch. What do I do right now? Yeah. And then 6 months from now, I might say, okay, now can we continue to do this on a sustainable level? Because am I getting somewhere close with what?
No, yeah, you're spot on. You're spot on with that. So we get brought in, and either I've had, listen, I'm just frustrated. I cannot get my sales team to perform at the level I think they should perform, right? Or sometimes we're brought in from marketing partners and they're saying, hey, listen, we're generating a ton of leads. I just need somebody to take a look at the sales process to see, is it matching up, right? So the first thing we do is an audit, right? We come in and look at what's going on and what are the best practices, and are you and your team following those best practices?
Are you a LinkedIn user? If you are, you can join me for LinkedIn Live Audio with Elizabeth every week, usually on Mondays at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. I will have a LinkedIn Live Audio where we talk about podcasting for executives who speak and podcasting for team leaders who speak. These are the themes that are currently running. If that sounds like something you're interested, visit me, Elizabeth Walker at Work, on my LinkedIn profile.
From there, we give you a good list, right? Here's your top 10 things you need to do today. We could stay on and do it for you. And if not, certainly you could do it yourself. God bless. We wish you all the best. Usually they say, you got to stay on and do it because I'm just too busy. I can't get to it all. So then we just focus on the basics and we start building up the basics, right? And sometimes it's you got everything going, you just need to work with your team, right? They're just not closing you, right? Or you've got too many. We got a client that, you've become a proposal shop, right? So you're sending out a lot of proposals, but none of those proposals are coming to close. So either we're not tying it down, or there is people are just being nice to us and saying, "Oh, this sounds great. Send me a proposal," but they don't have a thought that they're going to buy. So really, we're brought in for so many different things. Sometimes we're brought in because they can't find salespeople, so we kind of help with the recruiting process. The firefighting mode, one is it's fun, but two is it's exhausting, right? So you don't want to be in the firefighting mode forever. You want to kind of get it, you got to get the embers taken care of, and then you start rebuilding the house, if you will. But yeah, we get brought in a lot. Just an example, last night, I got text from a past client. They need phone work, right? So they need somebody on the phone. They're in the middle of an event and they just don't have as many people as they thought. So they just need people to kind of beat the bushes for them. We do that work, right? We have a team in the Philippines that does a lot of outbound. I have localized talent that does a lot of phone for them. So, that's a firefighting mode. That's a sprint for X amount of weeks. And we're going to just pound a list as fast and furious as we can to try to get some people in seats, if you will. So we get called in for everything. Every day is an adventure, right? Which is fun. But by Friday, I'm tired. I lost you on your audio.
I'm back.
Got it.
How's that? Okay.
Perfect.
Okay. I hope I didn't. All right. Let's hope that doesn't happen again. Okay. So is it challenging to implement your sales team and find the right marketing mix with your sales with your pipeline and your marketing all the way to close, matching the right talent? When Nicholas and his team leaves, is it difficult for me to maintain what you've built? Do I get to come back to you? How does that transition?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple things. One is we want to say, hey, listen, we could stay on forever if that's something that you want, right? And that's our model. We have some clients that we started with 5 years ago, and we're still with them, and they just like having us as part of it. And our scope of work maybe ebbs and flows a little bit, but we're part of it. Others, we say, hey, listen, you only need a 0.25 FTE, if you will, right? So we'll use business, the average small business person would think you only need a person part-time, right? So in the corporate world, we call them FTE. And so we have team members that can plug them in so you're not naked in the sales leadership, sales management position. The other thing we do is say, you're at that point where you need somebody. Let us help you hire a sales manager, right? And up level them. But let's not do what everybody does, which is, oh, let me up level or promote my best salesperson into a sales leadership role. Usually that doesn't work out, right? 9 out of 10 times we're brought in because that happened and we got to clean up that mess. And it's not, mess in a other way that you just move the wrong person into the wrong role based on their personality type, based on their drive, and based on how they get motivation in work. I lost you again, Elizabeth.
All right. Can you hear me now?
I gotcha.
Okay, we're just gonna took the microphone off all the way. um, so where can you dive in deep with me today as far as something you're interested in sharing with me? Because I've heard you say a couple of times that one of the things that if we're listening to this interview, we're recording today, it's the end of September, and within the next month, lots of folks are going to hear this episode, and I'm hearing some resonance from folks who are saying exactly what you said. Am I experiencing a lag in something because of an election? My original or my immediate thought is, well, and then there's another lag after the election, and then there's always some, there's always going to be a cycle, even though this is a very more dramatic one, right? So as far as feeling like, yeah, okay, there are some outside influences that maybe I don't have control over. But this is the nature of life, right? So what would you say to somebody like me who's like, okay, I've got to deal with this
That's a great
outside.
question. And here's what I say. Yeah, here's what I say. That business has to happen. Commerce has to happen. We're not going to stop because of one event. I think if you think about something that was terrible for not just the United States, but the entire world, was COVID, right? Well, we stopped for maybe a handful of days, but then we said we got to figure out how to sell stuff. We got to figure out how to get our employees to work, even if they're working remotely. How do we keep them safe? We had to answer all those questions. And I think small business people are the best at that, right? They're the best at pivoting. They're the best at figuring it out. And so here's the conversation that always has to happen, right? And the conversation is, Nick, it looks like this was a priority, right, for you at one point. For some reason, something has stalled you. And so what haven't I shared with you that makes you feel comfortable in moving forward, right? And if it's fear, right, because don't forget the status quo is easy for people saying, hey, listen, I'm just going to keep this money in my coffers, if you will, versus making the investment into product, services, or information, whatever you are selling as the business coach or the business person. So now you have an ROI conversation you have to have with them. The second thing is that you have to have that conversation of, hey, listen, if you're sitting on the sidelines and your competition isn't, you're going to lose market share, right? You're losing out. And that's a long-term recipe for disaster. Vice versa, if your competition's sitting on the sidelines, now's the time to push the gas going, right? Because of the fact that you want to grab market share, right? If you go back and look at studies, even in the midst of the Depression, those people that accelerated their spend on advertising, on marketing, on developing sales teams and deploying them came out of it so much stronger because of that. Right? If you go back and look at the history of business, we've had ebb and flows, right? And I've been around. The housing crisis was one that was, kind of slowed us down for a little bit. We had to think about how do we pivot to that. Money became very tight, right? There was unknown in the unknown. But the savvy business person will say, okay, how do I figure out how to move through this? It's not easy, right? And it's easy to kind of just give a flippant answer. So I don't say any of what I just said with lack of disrespect. It's from a place of love and from a place of respect. But as a business owner, you have to kind of think that through, because nobody's going to come save you, right? Nobody's going to rush in. You don't have if you're a corporate employee, you have the benefit of the corporation. But I'd be scared if I was sitting on the W-2 payroll of a corporation right now too, because of the fact that they're just looking at headcount, and it's easy for them just to make cuts. So with crisis becomes opportunity, right? With unknown in the marketplace becomes opportunity. And we as entrepreneurs and small businesses are the best at pivoting. Let's just use an example of a big company, but it was a small company. And I was watching this weekend We Burn, right, which is the Apple TV version of the WeWork story, which I found fascinating because I think it was a great business model. It still is a great business model. Well, he started out as something completely different, and he pivoted because he saw a vision and saw an opportunity. If you think about Groupon, which in 2008, 2009 was took the world of marketing by storm. They were originally a platform to do micro donations, right? Which are huge in the political environment that we're dealing with now, but nobody was taking micro donations. They realized that wasn't scalable. It just was, it maybe was too early. And so what did? They went to businesses. So I think as a business owner, you have to constantly be thinking of, why are deals getting stalled? What can I do to accelerate deals? I don't want to give a price discount. I don't want to give up margin, right? So what can we do? Can we do value adds? Can we do different things? Can we do extensions of contracts or something of that nature? But I got to figure that out. And also, somebody's buying something somewhere. And do I have the skill set and do I have the product and service knowledge that I could kind of pivot and go into that, right? So here's something that we're thinking about. We started out, right now, more and more people are calling us not only for the core business model, which is to help with the fractional sales leadership, but we're getting called on, hey, I got to hire people and I'm just not good at it. Can you take over that? So we're now doing that business line. Hey, I need somebody just to work the phones for us, right? And so I am thinking about, do I do fractional salespeople? Historically, I've done fractional business development, or SDRs, if you will. So you have to constantly be thinking about it as a business and what is your market, right? Where are they at? And meet them where they're at.
Mm. Okay, well, I knew I was going to get a lot of value out of this conversation today, and if you could tell, I'm writing things down as I'm listening, as I normally do. But let me show you my page of notes. I have a couple
Love
of
it. Your handwriting is much better than mine. You'll be able to read that.
Oh my goodness! Well, I'm kind of going to throw a dart at it. So you've one thing that I wrote down here was that you want to think about grabbing market share as well if your competition is sitting on the sidelines, and that is motivating to think about too, right? Is being positioned to do that. So it does sound like you have a fantastic feel for matching, kind of like what's the model, what's the pivoting. And I love that you said that being in small business you are positioned potentially the best to pivot. I love that topic. Does that mean that I can ask you to kind of, like you were sharing, what kind of things we can change in the model and play around with that? It feels like I can kind of brainstorm with you. It feels like when I come to you, we're going to play with that potentially.
Yeah, I think so. So, I mean, we do that. That's what we do for our clients, right? And it's not only just pivot business line, but pivot maybe tactical things that we're doing. So one example is we took over the sales leadership, sales management for a firm that was predominantly an inbound, right? And so they just said, I just need somebody to help me with my inbound. And I want to look at just converting better, right? So we're getting X amount of leads coming in, we're just not converting them. And I said, that's sure, not a problem at all. We'll do that with you. But then we started looking at their business line and we realized there were some big drivers of their business that came from two different sources. And so we put an outbound person on each of those different sources to drum up business, right? So we just didn't passively wait for people, or didn't didn't go into competition with people looking online and picking three of our different competitors and asking for bids. So we did a outbound for these two categories just to drive business. And so that's a tactical pivot, right? So I'm doing inbound, I'm converting inbound, I'm working on converting my inbound better, but now let's put an outbound, which is scary, which is an FTE or two investment, right? So I got to get a return on investment for that business owner, but that's just a way to look at it. The second thing might be, what other services do so in the classic, what's a cross sell, what's an upsell, right? So they're coming to us, they're buying from us. What else can we go out and source so that way we can maximize my value to them, right? And maximize my value and transaction size, right? So how do I drive value not only from the services that I provide to them, but other goods and services that I could provide to them? The other thought too is, okay, if they're saying no to XYZ, are there different products that we could bring to the marketplace that might be lower that kind of solve it, so we at least keep them as a customer or acquire them as a customer, and then we keep them for life, right? By serving them as best as we can. There's so many different things, and that's the fun thing about business, right? It's not a one size fits all. We're always looking at, and that's why I love business coaches, and I love the work that you're doing on this podcast, because you bring so many different people to talk about so many different things. And I think that for most business owners, they have to get out of their business for a little bit or talk to somebody that is really, really, really smart, right? i.e. a business coach that is kind of seeing this from a lot of different perspectives and isn't emotionally attached to the business, and say, why don't we do this? Or have you thought about this? Or can you do this? And I think that's just smart, right? Because we're only going to get breakthroughs in our business when we take a step back and away from our business and think of it differently, because we're too caught up in it. We're firefighting, right? We're just trying to get through tomorrow. We're trying to get to the end of the year. And we can't, as business owners, do everything. So I love the work that you're doing on this podcast. I love, business coaches that could come in and say, hey, here are 4 things that I think you should be doing today. Usually the business owner agrees with you, but then they say, well, I can't do them. So can you, help me implement these, if you will? So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How are we doing on time? It's 10:32.
I'm good. I'm good.
Okay, maybe 10 minutes.
Yeah, keep going.
Okay, awesome. Well, I remember that. So let's see, but I wanted to check the time, and let me back up and make sure we get back on track with what I want to ask you. So you had mentioned earlier too that kind of bringing the sales individual, the sales rep, up to speed. Maybe speed's not the right word, but you said train up. So you have, if you have the ability to do that, now's a good time to ask you. Also, something that I remember from our first conversation that stuck with me was your comment about the idea that you might have someone who comes from an experience in sales, right? You're looking at matching salespeople, or maybe a process, right? Maybe what's the right approach? Do I put someone on the phone versus, this or that? So that's your magic, right? Is to sort of figure out these pieces that fit together, and what are the complements. And if you have a person who, let's say you have a staff member a sales team member who has a track record of experience. What was the example that you used before? Somebody who worked for Google.
Yeah.
And or that was an example, right? You got someone who needs help finding salespeople or something, and you realize that that business owner might be looking for sales help from somebody who was really an order taker, and
Right.
they needed somebody that had a different kind of experience. Can you tell me about that?
That is so spot on. And I see that mistake happen. And I kind of alluded to that in the beginning. And I really think, that's pivotal. And I see this mistake made by business owners a lot. And I see this sometimes with business owners going after the wrong employee, but also the wrong business coach, right? And so I'll use an example on 2-tier. So the example I use is we went to go assist and help a firm that was a digital marketing firm. And he says, I hired this guy out of Google and he just can't sell. And I said, of course he can't. I go, because no one gets sold Google. Everyone buys Google, right? And he was used to getting in just by the power of the brand. And you're like, well, of course I'm going to talk to Google because I'm going to get a couple, 3 things from him. And I need that because the search engine drives a portion of my business, right? So you think about it, everything was aligned for this person to not be a hunter, right? To be used to using the power of the brand that they worked for in the past, to break through, to get in, as well as people are like, well, yeah, of course I need to be on Google, right? So now, I mean, he's never going to be a successful salesperson for somebody that's going out there and selling marketing services because of the fact that he just, hasn't had to hunt. And when we did a profile on this person, we realized he wasn't a hunter profile. He was a really good account executive, right? But an account executive will kick and scream to make cold calls. An account executive will kick and scream to go out and knock on doors. You need the hunter personality, the hunter salesperson that likes going out and finding the new logo, new business, bringing the meat, if you will, back to the tribe to cook and eat and all that, if we go back to older times. So it is it's a classic mistake that we do is, business owners find somebody, they get enamored by a resume that is a very great corporate resume, but you realize this person is just an account executive. Doesn't make them a bad person, just makes them the wrong fit for the job, right? Probably a phenomenal person, phenomenal account executive, will take care of their clients forever and just nurture them, but will never get double digit to triple digit growth. We'll just get, steered growth. I see this too sometimes when business owners hire people that came out of large corporations. Sometimes it's difficult, right? Because the fact that they know to throw a lot of bodies at a problem, right? Or they had the brand that, kind of really was making it, or they had huge support systems. And so you have to be really, really, really be careful when you're going out and you're hiring, especially for the small business owners. Second, too, is sometimes those people come with very big pay requests, right? And so now you're burning capital on somebody that isn't producing. So a lot of times business owners can only afford a C-level player, but we got to coach them up to be a B-level player, right? Or they could get a B-level player and really structure the comp so it's all on new business coming in and then up leveling their game to A level. And so you have to it's a great question, and you really have to be cautious as a business coach that's listening to this, that's advising people, especially when you start seeing this, or as a business owner, of making sure you have the right personality type and the right person, somebody that's learned how to be crafty, right? The other thing I learned is, I learned this from a client once. He said, I only want people that have sold products in the past versus service. And I'm like, walk me through that, because he was a service-based business, right? I'm like, well, walk me through that. He goes, because what they have learned in a product is the product is XYZ. It does 1, 2, 3, right? And a service will come back and say, oh, can we do this? Or can we do this? Or can we change this? And we sometimes will. But if it's just a product, right? It's just a widget. It's X. It does X. Therefore, you get Y results. I thought that was pretty interesting concept. And it worked for him, right? And so and he was a very smart business owner. I learned a lot from him. One of our first clients that we worked with, and his approach to sales, really, was that, and he was great on drilling his team, and hired us to help drill the team and really create a great playbook, and was constantly doing new things. So I think that's another thing, especially in times of economic uncertainty. It's now time to test, to try new things, right? Try different approaches, try different ways. Maybe you go more educational based, bringing people into seminars. If I'm a business owner, about our topics, that becomes now my business development. You got to try a lot of different things. And when I'm pointing a finger and giving advice, I got 4 coming back at me, right? I need to do the same thing in my business. But I think it's a great way for us all to learn.
Yeah, I will. Well, I think that probably I could sit down with you and ask you a lot about how you find these magic ways to train somebody up, and the matching process, and where does marketing and sales marry together as far as how that works. Maybe a couple of last closing statements. I think so. Salesperformanceteam.com is where I want to go. Now, do I want to get in touch with you? Do I ask for a consultation? What do I want to do
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways. Certainly salesperformanceteam.com, or you could just email me at nick@salesperformanceteam.com, or go on LinkedIn, right? I'm very active on LinkedIn, somewhat active on Facebook. So you could hit me on those two places. Myself or a member of our team will reach out to you. And what we like to do is, if you have questions, just say, hey, listen, I heard you on the podcast and I got some quick questions. Love to talk to you, right? It's my value add. You're kind enough to have me. You've been a phenomenal host, right? So I want to give value to your listeners. If you go onto our website, you could probably do it from one of the pop-down screens, but also go to salespack, P-A-C-K, .salesperformanceteam.com. And we give you a lot of free stuff, right? So my entire philosophy, a lot of the questions that you asked is in a book, right? So you get a free ebook of that. You could go on Amazon and buy it. That'd be great. You and my mom will be the two or three people that have bought
Right.
it. But certainly go on and get that. We have a bunch of different checklists, right? So how do you coach up people? Here's a call checklist. So the salesperson could self-select, or you as the business owner could sit down and listen to it and check off, did they do this on the call? Did they do this on the call? Did they do this on the call? Right? So it allows you to kind of have a tool. So it's not subjective, it's objective, right? So here's how we make things through. Third thing on there is kind of an 88-point best practices in the sales thing. It's not as detailed as our deep dive, and you don't get a report, but it's just things that the best sales teams and the best marketing teams do. So how do you, kind of gear up to that, right? Where do you rank to that? So that's all for free. Go to that. If you have questions, just hit us up. We love teaching. We do things all the time, and we do these, and it's our way of giving back to the small business community.
Well, this is a lot. This is fantastic. I have some questions of my own for you for
Sure.
my little world, and that is salespack.salesperformanceteam.com.
Correct.
Okay. Well, Nicholas, thank you for giving me your time today. This is great. And I do want to talk to you again. And let's talk after November too and see what's new around Christmas time would be.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Well,
Okay.
Elizabeth, thank you for having me on, but thank you for doing this. Listen, podcasts are a labor of love, right? They are difficult, they're time consuming, and you do it as a give back to small business and thought leaders. I've been listening to some of your thoughts. The people you have on are great folks. So I really appreciate it. I mean, it's lonely being a coach. It's lonely being an entrepreneur, right? Because you don't have a lot of people to talk to. And, like if you talk to let's call it people that you hang out with that are in the corporate world, they don't understand what we do every day, right? Especially as a business coach. So I really appreciate all the work that you're doing and providing such a great source of information for folks. I'm honored that you had me on, and let's keep the conversation going.
Wow. Thank you so much. I hope you have a fantastic day. Likewise.
I will try. And I gotta run and get ready for my next call. And I'm sure you do too. And thank you.
Thank you. Little button. Come on now. Thank you so much for joining me today. My name's Elizabeth in Floyd, Virginia. This has been an episode of Dear Business Coach.